food system future. So that's the end of the presentation there. I hope that my colleagues have joined me. I'm not quite sure if they're on the phone or where they are, but we'd be happy to take your questions and any discussion that might be there.
Thank you very much, Christy. It's an absolutely outstanding presentation. I do have a copy of your program here, and it's quite good. I have to admit, I haven't gotten all the way through it yet, but it's fairly daunting in itself for a newbie. But one question I'd like to put out before we start on nutrient recycling, seeing as how we're starting a composting facility here, but both in human waste and in agriculture waste, was there any kind of study done on everything from medications and pesticides, herbicides being recycled back into the nutrient stream? A little concerned about some of that.
Yeah, no, we didn't get to that level of detail. I don't know if any of my colleagues want to speak to that. I think we were working with a postdoctoral fellow in Sweden who focuses on nutrient recovery, and it's certainly something we could perhaps ask him, because it's something that they deal with in Sweden and in Europe quite a lot. So I'm sure there are ways of addressing it. I don't personally know what those are at this point. Emily, I don't know, or Naomi, if you have anything to add to that. No, but that's maybe that I wonder that too, because I use the municipal compost in my own garden, and so I have the same questions. So I will follow up with Robin, our postdoctoral fellow, about that, and I can forward that along to you, Director.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think that'd be a concern to a few people going forward. It's high in people's minds, I'm sure. One other question, I'm just wondering if you've had any research or buy-in from basically the big stock box people, Loblaws, Sobeys, Walmart, and that. It's kind of necessary to have them on board to maximize the marketing of this, and I'm just wondering if there's any work done in that area.
Not at this point. And we've just released just kind of getting the report out there, and we've done a series of public webinars, but apart from that, you're kind of we're just starting to get the word out. I don't know, Kent, if you want to speak to that at all, the relationship with.
Yes, Director, we did not engage with the big box retailers. In my experience doing this kind of work over the years, exploring ways to advance regional food systems, in all honesty, the big box stores are not interested. It goes against their economic model, and in fact, in previous work, some of the larger food system entities were simply not cooperative to the extent of undermining efforts to localize food systems. That doesn't mean that they can't be engaged, but they would have to reassess their business and economic models, I think. But it raises a very good question, particularly around the hegemony that exists in our food system. Well over 60% of food retail trade in Canada is controlled by 4 corporations, and for example, during the pandemic, they profited because of this, and so it really does beg the question of whether we advance a food system that is dependent on this sector, or a food system that develops via an economic model parallel to that food system, or in concert with that component of the food system. It's a big question.
Thank you very much, sir. That was one of my growing concerns. I see we have some questions coming, so Director Bauer.
Yeah, thank you, lots of questions to ask, but so little time. So I'm gonna leave it to one question. I noticed you haven't mentioned greenhouses at all, where you have an environment that can be very much controlled with water, fertigation, irrigation, and possibly a all year round crop as well. And you can diversify very much. I understand the issue always has been heating costs or cooling costs, depending on, but with new technology. So how does that affect your calculations in terms of land base, not having greenhouses entailed there?
I believe we do have greenhouses included in our modeling. Correct me if I'm wrong, to my colleagues, but for specific crops, I think we do include greenhouse production in there.
The counselor, we did not do any concerted focus on a greenhouse intensive or a technology intensive food system. And again, the fact of the matter is that as we embrace technology, we also embrace concentration in the food system and a highly capitalized food system. We focused on a land-based food system, regionalized food system. And increasingly, it's recognized that if we're going to feed the world, it is a land-based food system, really predicated on supporting smallholder agriculture that is going to do it. In fact, the United Nations has shifted its focus from industrial intensive agriculture to feed the world to smallholder intensive agriculture feeding the world. So I have to say, as an agriculturist, I'm not convinced that in technologically intensive, structure intensive agriculture is what we should be focusing on.
Thank you, sir. Director Holmes?
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned, Christy, in the policy area recommendations that there's more information in the briefs. I'm just wondering, where do I get a hold of these briefs? And is there a report that goes along with your presentation? And can we get that? Thanks.
Sure. So there is a copy for you in the RDOS offices that was mailed out. But if you're not in the office, you can also download them from the project website, which I can put up again on the screen. A second here. But yeah, everything is freely available online. So you probably can't read that on that slide.
Okay, somebody will send me the link. It's all right. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other questions right at the moment, but I do have one more. Was there any consideration given to the change of crops due to what we're seeing with climate and water issues, or do we just stick with the crops that are current? Now, you may have answered that in your brief, but like I say, I haven't quite made it all the way through this.
Sure, no worries. I'd like to give one of my colleagues a chance to respond to that. I don't want to put you on the spot, but Naomi, did you want to speak to the climate change piece?
For sure, I'm happy to. Yes, yeah, very, very relevant question, of course. Within the modeling component of the study, we did not consider the difference in crop suitability because of climate change. We put a lot of thought up front into how we could potentially navigate that based on how the model worked. However, the uncertainty around that and the variability across the bioregion made it such that within the consideration of the model itself, the crop suitability remained the same as it did in 2016, which we do recognize will likely not be the case. Where we looked at the impacts of climate change were more related to the water availability study, touching a bit on the different water intensivity of different scenarios and availability with between a sort of typical set of climatic conditions and then using a dry year historically to represent what we might expect down the line with climate change as conditions change. So it was incorporated there. Within the model, there was a lot of back and forth, which we're happy to explain if or talk about more fully later. But in the end, we settled on the dynamics of 2016 as our crop suitability land base.
Yeah, and there is more of a narrative approach. I don't know if you can see that in the report, which talks about the general climate impacts that we would see, but not in terms of modeled numbers.
Yeah, I might also add, Director, that in our previous study in Southwest BC, we did attempt to look at crop suitability, yield sensitivity predicated on climate change. And what we really found is that in the balance of the nearly 130 food crops that we include in this model, that climate change affect yield variability didn't substantially affect food self-reliance, because some crops would yield more, be more suitable, some yield less, be less suitable. So on the balance, there was not a huge impact. But the fact of the matter is, it's a wild card, and nobody really knows how this is going to affect crop production and what crops will be suitable and what crops will no longer be suitable. But it's very difficult to model.
Thank you very much for your insight. Director Bush?
Yes, thank you very much. And to the chair, since 2016, I know that our apple acreage has dropped by 1,000 acres. And I'm sure the wine and grape and pod industry has probably increased by 3,000 acres. And really that's a sad indication of where our agriculture is going. I mean, it's not even food.
I'm not sure who to direct that one at, but if any one of you wants to pick up a comment on that, would you please?
Yeah, please allow me. I'm worked in the tree fruit sector for 25 years. That is my area of agricultural specialization, and I could not agree with you more. The Okanagan is one of the absolutely best places on earth to grow deciduous tree fruit, and in particular apples. The Okanagan apple industry has long been a global leader in apple production innovation, and it is a travesty, in my estimation, that it is suffering so and declining by virtue of the fact that the Okanagan's history and superiority for apple production. But the fact of the matter is, if regional agriculture cannot differentiate itself from the global system in virtually every jurisdiction, then it is going to continue to play the vicious transnational agri-food game, and in most instances it's going to lose, which is exactly what is happening to the Okanagan apple sector. Just south of the border, they produce 140 million packed boxes of apples, and that industry is burying BC's 3 million packed boxes of apples industry. And so through the regionalization of food systems, we can differentiate regional crops and producers and businesses so that citizenry can patronize and support them. And this is a perfect example of, in my mind, what a primary motivation for regionalizing the food system is.
Thank you, sir. With that, we also see the pressures of corporate farming in all divisions coming forward. The economies of scale make it very difficult for the small farmer and we're hoping to be able to advance them in many ways. Are there any other questions for the delegation here? Not seeing any, I would be thanking the delegation very much. An absolutely outstanding presentation. Very happy with it. And I look to be talking to most of you in the future. My area is predominantly agriculture, so it's definitely a hot topic. With that, I think I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn this meeting. I don't see any other business on the agenda. Do I see a motion to, thank you, Director Santes, Director Robbins. Thank you very much, folks. I'll turn this back over to Chair Kovacevic.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair Nodal. Okay, directors, we're going to move on with the Corporate Services Committee. And I ask you to have a look at your agendas, and I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Moved by Director Getton, seconded by Director Bauer. All in favor? Thank you. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. We have one item on the agenda, a motion to produce variable budgets. CAO.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Well, administratively, we found the proposal on the budget format somewhat limiting. Not to say that we are just starting on the budget process ourselves. And if, as we go through this discussion, if there are any suggestions on how to improve on the format or the content or any other changes, this would be a good time to start that discussion. We'll be back a number of times through the summer in order to discuss that too. But I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Savino, Madam Chair, and he can explain the sort of the technical difficulties with the proposal that has been on the floor.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Zavino, go ahead, please.
Thank you. And can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. So looking at the motion, it would require, as the report stated, a total of 844 pages. And it's not just a matter of doing what ifs by reducing the dollar amount. It also would involve all 155 services that the managers manage, and looking at how can we reduce the cost and still maintain the level of service that would be required. The other thing too, it also would require a numerous number of tax requisitions. The budget is just one stage of what the tax requisition would be. You'd have to go back and re-enter all the information again in the tax requisition to take a look at what the assessments are and what the taxes would be. And one of the things I did in the 2021 budget is to sit down with the different directors and look at their budgets and determine, essentially I did a what if, well, one-on-one, but using the budget that one budget that we created. So that's the time limits that would require to do all of those what ifs would require just another staff member essentially to help me out to do this. And there are going to be some recommended changes in the 2022 budget that the senior managers have looked at, they're reviewing, and we'll be discussing it actually at the next SMT meeting, which will give the directors more relevant information. So if there's any questions, I'm glad to take them.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Zaffino. Directors, any questions for Mr. Zaffino on this report? Yes, Director Monteith, go ahead, please.
To the chair, this was my director's motion. I have found the budget's getting harder and harder to comprehend. It moves so fast. There's so much information. So I do appreciate your administrative report, and I know that it's a complicated ask, but I do see that we are presented always with more. And I hear from our ratepayers that the regional district is getting simply too expensive, that we just keep adding, and we're never looking at reductions or all those sort of things. And I feel that Our ratepayers want us to do that. They want us to look at options. They don't just want us to always build. They want us to maybe look at economy of scale, looking at partnership with our member municipalities, you know, all those sort of things that I don't feel like we're doing. And I don't feel that we're doing our ratepayers due justice if we're not looking at all options. And I do feel that there is opportunities and we're not looking at those. So that's sort of where this whole motion came from. Seeing the Okanagan Regional Library do something similar. Yes, they only have one budget. I totally understand that. It is complicated with the regional district. But I do feel we need more information when staff are presenting their staff changes. It's not very clear on the impact. And it's sort of, we're being asked to blindly agree to something. And I don't think that we are making good decisions if we're making blind decisions. So I am asking for more transparency, and I think that we need to do something, and I'm not sure what that is. So I don't know, am I the only one that feels this way? But I know that I'm hearing it pretty loud and clear from my residents.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Director Bauer and then Director Coyne Sr.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I couldn't disagree more with what Director Monteith just said. There is lots of collaboration between municipalities and their adjacent electoral areas. The RDOS process, as far as budget goes, is very transparent and accountable and is always looking for direction from the board. I don't see that any changes here are needed. So I'm going to make the recommended motion to defeat that motion. Thank you.
Okay, Director Bauer has moved the administrative recommendation. Director Coyne Sr., you're seconding it, I believe. Okay, thank you. And then I'll go to Director Coyne Sr. You want to speak on this?
Yeah, and I'll just go on record as actually agreeing with Director Bauer. But no, I agree with what he has said. And my constituents are very concerned about the cost of things, but when they understand why the costs are the way they are, I've never had, should say never, but I rarely have people that actually disagree with them, because actually my constituents out here primarily look for more services and more opportunities. And we've worked very collaboratively over here with the town of Princeton, and maybe historically the other areas surrounding Penticton haven't got involved with other community, with the regional directors in the city. Maybe they haven't taken opportunities where they were available for whatever reason in history. But I think it's something that each individual area has to work with their region or with their neighboring municipalities, and it really works well here. So I don't support this motion at all to change the way we do business. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to CAO Newell and then Director Gettins. Go ahead, CAO.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So just to clarify, we have this awkward financial system that the province has handed us, and we don't have a lot of the flexibilities that would benefit the type of discussions that I think the board would benefit from themselves if we were able to be able to move money around. But the fact is that we have these 155 different services. Most of them have different ratepayer groups. So you can't move money from one group of ratepayers to another to pay for a service. And it's very complex and it's complicated. And on the other hand, a lot of our services, although we have 155 of them, are very small. So to use a percentage basis as to whether a decrease or an increase is tough, because of course percentages don't always work in a small service, especially if you have a surplus or a deficit from the preceding year that you have to address in the subsequent year. So we've got all these inherent difficulties with our budgeting system. But I will say that as each of our services are contemplated for the next year, that the manager responsible does, and we hold them accountable for building based on the service itself. It's not just looking at increases, it's looking at what's in the service. Oftentimes, if one part of the service can be decreased, that there is that demand for additional services on the other side of it, so then some other line account has to be increased. And you know, we understand that it's a lot of information that a board receives in our budget packages, and again, we're mandated to do this in a public forum, and it would be nice to sit down and sort of do a query program on each of the services. But I mean, you know, on a lot of our services, there's only one of 19 members that are really interested. So I'm not discounting that. I'm just saying this is a tough forum to do a budget in. And for those that have been involved in municipal budgeting, it is a totally different game than what we're used to in just incorporated communities. So not to say that we shouldn't be very specific about what we're asking people to pay for. It's just that we need to look at each of those services freshly each year and build them based on what's going to be required in order to fund that service. I would say that if generally overall citizens are to the point where they're just fed up with paying more taxes, what we should be looking at is reducing program, not trying to pare back a service. Because if we're going to do a service, we should do it well, and we don't want to be nickel and diming the types of services that we provide, because then that builds expectations of our citizens that they're going to be done well. So I would say it would be better if we decide to cut a program than it would be to nickel and dime a service that our citizens expect us to offer well. So just a harbinger of what's to come as we get into the fall season with our budgeting processes and strategic planning and all of those other things that come at the end of the year.
Okay, thank you. I've got a few more directors. Director Gettins, go ahead, please.
Thank you, the chair. I think with, I understand where Director Monteith is coming from on this, because when your whole budget is with the regional district, you know, we'll make a decision, we'll be asked to make a decision about something in strategic planning, and then we don't really know how that decision will impact our budget until we get to see the budget updates. We might agree to a new staffing or a new program, and then we'll get a budget, and it'll be different than the previous budget that we saw because we made this agreement, but we don't get to discuss what that actually really looks like or how that impacts. And I'm wondering, with the CFO, we had talked during the last budget about if the budget increase for a program or a department is more than the CPI, that we'll have a bit more information in order to make that decision, so that we know what we're saying yes to and how that'll impact our budget. Because I know for me, I'll go and agree to one thing in the budget process, and then I'll get another budget, and there'll be a new line item that I didn't know was there before, because it is so many budgets, and it is complicated how we do things in the regional district. It's a really hard budget to wrap your mind around 156 times. So I think for me, with partnerships with municipalities, I have a number of partnerships with Penticton, and I think that's fine. I think it's trying to navigate the regional district budget, the complexity of that. We make decisions without really knowing the actual final impact until we get to see it to the next time. So maybe the CFO, could you just, if you don't mind, just talk a little bit more about that CPI, and if the budget increases more than that, the kind of different information we can get or we can expect from managers moving forward?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Safino.
Thank you. One of the changes that the board will be seeing in the 2022 budget is exactly that. If there's a material increase in the what if budget, for instance, if there's a supplemental increase that wasn't there before and you've been asked to increase the service by the manager has to first of all explain why. And one of the things I will do is actually show you on consolidated summary form, what the impact would be.
Okay. Thank you. I'll go to
Yeah, I think so. And if I can just have a quick follow-up.
Go ahead.
So I would say for this last budget, there were some of us that was a little bit surprised to see the building inspection budget and some of the decisions we made a few years ago, what that did to our surplus and what we're facing right now. And it may have been brought up as a red flag for us to consider, but I don't recall that because again, it is a complicated process. It's a couple of days of discussion, but we made decisions that may not have been the right decisions to make because we didn't have enough information clearly laid out so we could see the impact 1 year down the road, 3 years down the road, or 5 years down the road. And now some of our citizens are facing an increase in a service that we didn't realize the impact that we were making as a collective board because we're all making that decision. So the more information that we have going forward to see that impact, I think would be quite beneficial to our citizens.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Director Kanoto. Go ahead, please.
To the chair, thank you. Well, I think Director Gettins has hit something kind of nail on the head. Some of these budgets, a building inspection, for example, can be hammered quite hard by one project. In Area C, we recently took an absolute trouncing from one vineyard that was, without a doubt, absolutely decadent, but it affected our building inspection costs for a number of years to come. And we may need to be looking at a method of mitigating that. And the same issues seem to have happened with mosquito control. In that one bad year indicates a huge increase in mosquito control that can't get mitigated out for 3 to 5 years, which is a little problematic in how it works. So we might want to look at something that works in that manner. I'd also like to know, and probably Mr. Zavino would have this information, is the presentation on budget items the same for all 27 regional districts? Or are there other models that we could possibly look at just for comparison? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Zavino, could you speak to that, please?
In regards to the presentation by other regional districts, seeing them newbie at this is my first full year. I can't say what their presentation are, but I can ask. And there is a forum that we have that we help each other, so I can ask what is the best presentations. I do have some ideas. I learned from this year's budget of where we can increase more information. I do have a new budget policy that I presented to the CAO that hopefully will be finalized next week, and it will affect the presentation that the board will see. There's more information, I believe, at the summary level. You already receive a huge sum of information. I don't want to add any more, but I do want to add relevant information that gives you the idea of a decision that you make today, how will it affect in the next 5 years? That's important. So that was brought up. I see that. That's something I'm used to, making a recommendation to my previous council, because there is a consequence sometimes where it looks good and the taxpayer is happy this year, but the next few years they're unhappy because either increase in taxes or decrease in services.
Okay, thank you. Director Monteith, go ahead, please.
To the chair, I really appreciate everything that Jim has done. I've seen a huge change in how the budget is presented to us with lots of information. I did really enjoy the what if. It did create a lot of great discussions and we found some opportunities right there. I will be following up on some of the discussions that I tested this year for next year because there's been no changes in those services. I think for my area, I really struggle with regional services because they don't work for all parts of my area. And I see it over and over with recreation, with BC Transit, all those sort of things. It's not working. And I've asked for a review of the services. I've asked for changes to the services and I'm not getting those things. So I don't know what else to do. Like it's this continuous, when area residents are saying that things are not working, they're not getting the value for what they're paying for, but yet we're not given an opportunity to decrease because they're regional services. That's where I'm struggling.
Okay, thank you. Director Bauer, you're next, unless that's a leftover hand from before. Okay, that looks like it was a leftover hand. Did anybody else have a comment to make or a question? Director Bush, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just want to say, I mean, we don't live in a perfect world where everybody gets taxed for what they use. You know, people get taxed for school that don't have kids and so on. It's the way our system is, and lots of times it's totally unfair. I mean, it's you're taxed on improvements, you're not taxed on use. It's not a fair system, but it's the system we got. And, you know, unless the government's going to change the system, we just have to go with what we got to work with.
Okay, thank you, Director Bush. I agree with that. I mean, transit, not all my citizens can access the transit in Area E, but they are paying for it, just like libraries. Not everyone uses libraries. Not everyone uses a hospital. There's lots of things, schools. You may not have children, but it's for the greater good of society in general. So it's a tough discussion because there's a lot of different philosophies on citizens paying for things that they don't utilize. Okay, Director Knodel, you're up again. Go ahead, please.
Just back to the issue like building inspection and mosquito control. Would there be a vehicle in there to open up and mitigate those one-off issues that absolutely hammer a budget over a number of years when they're actually just not a consistent growth issue? They become a one-up, and that has caused a lot of cost. And well, I know in Director Bush's area and in mine on mosquito control, one-ups have been a little bit dramatic at times. Possibly a way of mitigating that would help considerably. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, CIO Newell. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, we're aware of the mosquito issue because it came up during budget last year, and the intent is to bring that establishment bylaw forward for discussion well in advance of budget, so that that would be a regulatory change for us if you wanted to change the methodology that we raise funds for on that one. So yes, certainly. The other one you discussed last year during the budget process was your reserve policy. And one of the problems with building inspection in the past is that we've been depleting our operational reserve, which we use to try and balance out those peaks and valleys in a very inconsistent service, where you're busy some years and not busy other years, and we try and modify it on that. So those would be good discussions to have. And other similar services like that too. We try and have a policy discussion session during the budget process to attack issues like that. So yeah, both of those we'll cover.
Okay, thank you. Director Roberts, I think I saw a hand up. Go ahead, please.
Yes, thanks to the chair. Just a quick one, because mosquito, and that was also the premise behind looking at the chipping program in regards to its objectives, because again, the overall policy and objective behind the service a lot of times directs the billing process and how we take care of it in taxation. So that as mosquito is also up there for discussion as well for this upcoming budget.
Okay, thank you. Director Gittins, go ahead.
Thanks to the chair. I think it's, I just wanted to say thank you to Director Monteith for bringing this forward, because I will support the motion on the floor right now, because I understand how much work is involved in doing this to 156 budgets. But I think it is important that when a director has a concern for his or her area or their area, that we as a board have an opportunity to hear that and listen to that, because this is something that I think Director Monteith, and I know there's been other directors who brought this up quite often, and there is a gap, and there is something we can do better, especially for us that have been here for just this one term. You know, we had a new CFO for the first 2 years, and we've got another one, so we've got to learn a new process, then we have to learn a new philosophy, and then we're trying really to do the best by our citizens. So more discussion and an earlier discussion, I think, would go a long way. I would like to see this idea that CFO brought forward around the CPI and what that would look like, even just as an example early on, so we can kind of wrap our mind around that and see if there's anything else that we would like to hear before we get into budget discussion. But I think it's good. The more conversation, the better, and the earlier we start, the better, because this is a big deal to a lot of our citizens, how much their taxes are. And this is another year of COVID, and we have to recognize that for some of our citizens, it's going to be another hard year. So I think the earlier discussion, so thanks for bringing it to the forefront, Director Monteith. But I'll vote in favor for the motion on the floor, but I look forward to more discussion.
Okay, thank you very much, Director Gettens. So directors, we do have the administrative recommendation on the floor. Is there any further comment or question on that before I call the question? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands up there. Okay, directors, all in favor? Okay, thank you. Hands can come down. And was anybody opposed? Director Knodel opposed? Anybody else? No, motion carries then. Okay, thank you, directors. That takes us to the end of Corporate Services Committee. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn the committee. Moved by Director Bush, seconded by Director Bauer. All in favor? Thank you. Hands can come down. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. And directors, that gives us 5 minutes for a quick break before we get started on the board meeting. So we will start right at 10:30, please. Thank you. Okay, directors, we're going to get started with the regular board meeting. And once again, I'd like to welcome alternate Jim DeAndrea, who is filling in for Director Obrick today. Welcome, Jim. So directors, have a look please at your agenda. This is your only opportunity to remove an item from the consent agenda. Did anybody have something they needed to have removed from consent? Having a look here, I am not seeing any hands raised. Okay, I'm therefore looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Director Sentis, seconded by Director McCordoff. Thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Hands can come down. Anybody opposed? Motion carries, and I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda corporate issues. Moved by Director Robinson, seconded by Director Roberts. All in favor? Hands can come down. Anybody opposed? Motion carries, and I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda development services. Moved by Director Gettens, seconded by Director Pendergraft. Thank you very much. Call the question. All in favor? Hands can come down. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Okay, directors, that takes us down to item B, delegations. And with us today is a delegation from the South Okanagan Immigrant and Community Services. Today with us are Katerina, Cherry, Michael, and Elmira, and they're going to present to us on the South Okanagan Immigrant and Community Services regarding One World Youth and LIP. So welcome. I believe we have all four of you on. Is that correct, Danny?
Mm-hmm. Hello.
I'm. Good morning.
Hi.
There's Elmira. Hi.
I can't seem to share my screen. Danny, will you be sharing the slides or?
Do you have them, Danny?
Just a video.
A video? Are there slides along with a video, Elmira?
Yes, there are slides with the it should have been emailed prior. Do you have that?
So Danny, you're saying we have a video?
That's all we have.
We have just a video.
Okay. Anyone else? Elmira, Katerina, do you have that ability to share? Because it's not allowing me to.
Yeah, the ability is open to me. I can try to share it.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll see if Katerina can get those slides shared.
It just became unavailable to me. Sorry.
All right. Well, I guess we will try to go ahead without those slides.
Do you want the video shared now, or do you want to speak first and then we can...
We'll speak to it first, if that's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm just going to see if it... No, it's not allowing me. Okay.
If I may, Danny, just with the email with the video, the PowerPoint was attached on the same email. I'm not sure if you're able to pull it up or not.
Should we go ahead?
I think, Danny, you're going to be able to get it up?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, he is. He's going to put it up on the screen. Okay, there we go.
Wonderful. Okay, so before we start, I just want to acknowledge that we are joining you from the ancestral, traditional, and unceded territory of the Silk people. My name is Cherry. I am joined today by Elmira, Michael, and Katerina, part of the SOIX team. I recognize a number of faces here, and we have been connecting with many of the different communities. So if you're seeing this a second time, I do apologize, but appreciate this opportunity to once again come and speak with you. So the South Okanagan Immigrant and Community Services, if you can go to the next slide. Sorry. Thank you. So we are the immigrant serving organization providing settlement services in the South Okanagan-Similkameen. Here are some of the core services that we provide, and we serve permanent residents, naturalized Canadians, temporary foreign workers, and post-secondary international students. If you could go to the next slide. On April 4th, 2020, the immigrant serving sector was deemed an essential service industry. So for SOIX, that really meant making that transition, as many have had to do over the past year, to remain responsive and accessible. And here you can see some of the services that we provided. We really had to work to provide orientation and training on new technologies and online platforms. We hosted online one-on-one homework club to support home-based learning, and the success of that continued beyond the closures and into when school classes returned to the classroom. And so we continue to support a number of these students. We also offered intergenerational programming. So it's, sorry if you could go, thank you. Intergenerational programming to mitigate that isolation that many seniors, youth, and children were struggling with. And in a year of many racial tensions, we celebrated the diversity of our region with our very first virtual One World Festival. If you can go to the next screen. Despite the slowing of Canada's population, just up a little bit, sorry. Thank you. So despite the slowing of Canada's population due to border closures, we learned a new way to interact and connect and really became more accessible. And as you can see here, our services really did increase. We provided 13,175 services, up from the prior year, which was just over 7,000. Go to the, actually next one, yes. So today we're here to share with you two of our programs that we feel that would be we'd like to bring to your attention. The first being the Local Immigration Partnership with Elmira. Elmira?
Thanks so much, Sherry. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us today. And I know several of you are part of the Local Immigration Partnership, so you're very familiar with what we do. But for those who don't know us, we are a partnership table, and we bring together local governments, school boards, businesses, community organizations to develop and implement a strategy for successful immigrant integration in the community. So today I wanted to share with you, next slide, please. One of our projects that we recently started, it's called Workplace Equity and Inclusion. And the idea is to help employers in the community to create a more diverse and inclusive workplace by supporting them through training, resource development, working on policies together, visualizing their workplace inclusion, doing assessments for accessibility of their businesses. And we are using a broader definition of diversity, we're not just including immigrants, but also the indigenous communities, people that have disabilities, LGBTQ2S+, seniors and women. And we believe from diversity, we get to inclusion, and then we get to the equity. Next slide, please. As a result of this project, we're hoping that with the increased diversity and inclusion, businesses could improve their outcomes. So it's talent attraction, employee commitment and productivity, and market expansion. And there are many studies that show through diversity and inclusion, businesses are able to achieve those. And in the end, we're hoping that it will lead to improved labor outcomes for the region. Currently, we're working with 5 employers. Some of them are big, some are smaller, and we're hoping to roll it out next year to the whole community, working with you and also the chambers of commerce. Thank you so much. Next slide, please, and Katerina.
Thank you, Elmira. Yeah, so hi, I'm Katerina. I will be familiarizing you guys with the youth crew. And just on this next slide here, please. So we are, for those of you that don't know, we are a youth navigative program that's facilitated by SOICS. And our focus is to create more welcoming and inclusive communities in the South Okanagan. So the cool thing about this program is that we have the liberty to implement and choose what we want to showcase. So the goal is really to complete a project that will benefit the community, and generally every 6 months or so, this is what we try to do. Just on this next slide here, how we benefit the community. So youth gain from volunteer hours the chance to enhance their resume. They get to participate in different workshops. There's also, the main thing is to be active members in the community and the greater region. So a lot of activities such as art-based or media projects, multicultural learning, youth crew really adds to our communities by being more inclusive and promoting diversity. On this next slide here, I'll share an initiative that we've been working on, which is called Project Vandal. It rooted from noticing an increase in graffiti and vandalism that was primarily related to race. And so we began to explore ways that we could reduce that and the removal. So this led to an idea of the online reporting system, which also led to a virtual collaboration over COVID that led us to do this explainer video on the slide here. So we know that each of the communities has a strategy in place around graffiti, but we'd like to know as a youth crew if we can support and or add to your efforts. So from the online reporting system, if we can share the data that we've received to show if maybe, you know, the graffiti is around race, gender, or age. So yeah, we'd like to know what we can further do, if it's by sharing this collection of data or the reporting tool itself. Just on this next slide, just one more initiative that I'd like to share is the murals that we've been working on. Here is one that we have completed in the back of the SOICS office, but right now our true aspiration is to see more in the communities, and we just like to make more connections in the region and where more youth reside to come together and complete these sort of projects. And just on this next slide here, it just really has all the One World Youth Crew information, the video, the reporting system, and I'll hand it over to Jerry. Thank you.
Thanks. So we can move to the next slide. Thank you. So really, diversity and inclusion is inherent in all that we do with our services and programmings, with our settlement services, our local immigration partnership, our One World Youth Crew, as well as the Respect Network. The Respect Network is something that we have relaunched this year, and it is different community representatives, organizations, businesses, and residents themselves coming together to build strategies around anti-racism work. And one of those, if we can go to the next slide, is an initiative that was actually suggested by our youth crew first, is an anti-racism video. wanting to be able to share positive messages, we looked at other ways to communicate, particularly during the pandemic. We first came out with a video last summer entitled One Community, One World, and it really brought forward the faces of frontline workers in the South Okanagan-Similkameen, really going throughout the region. This one here we're about to share with you takes a little bit of a different look. It does cover the Thompson Okanagan region, and it presents a different perspective from that of a child. And it was really inspired by my own daughter when she was 3 years old and asked me the question, "Mommy, do you like being brown?" And that actually led to this video. So if you can share that with us, Danny, thank you.
Mommy, you like being brown?
Especially being new in this country, that this is stepping on toes.
Why don't
We have a bark shop in Elmira. Why would you bother coming here?
I live in Australia.
So what?
So what? So what? So what?
The ER nurse is referring to disturbing allegations involving medical staff in emergency rooms playing racially motivated games. Why do you go after the rats?
Mommy, you like being brown?
Baby, what do you see?
I see you, Mom.
What do you see?
My accent, my culture, my appearance, my name.
This is not my whole story.
I am your neighbor. I build your home and workplaces. I ensure your spaces are clean and safe. I grow your food.
I bring your food to you.
I am the employer.
I am business owner.
I create jobs.
I help you manage your future. I celebrate art.
I give back to the community.
I care for you.
I am a lifesaver.
I'm on the front line for you.
I provide guidance. Listen and offer comfort.
I am a teacher. I empower the next generation. I create innovation.
I see possibilities.
I
We are connected.
I am Carlos.
I am Salmon R.
I am Vernon.
I am Kilona. I am Pitchland. I am Summerland. I am Penticton. I am Oliver.
I am Osiris.
I see you.
I am Amanda.
Father.
Sister.
My brother.
Daughter.
Son. Mentor. Friend.
I am your neighbor. I am your neighbor. I am your neighbor.
I am your neighbor.
I see you. Mommy, you like being brown?
Baby, I'm proud to be brown. But I am not alone. You are not alone. This is our community. These are our neighbors. Neighbors that will not be silent, but take a stand and make us stronger together. Color makes life beautiful. We are all connected. Our diversity makes us stronger together.
Why fear our differences? Instead, share, learn, and appreciate the strength we have in our connection. To those that lift us up in times of crisis and uncertainty. To those that do their part every day where we work, learn, play, and live. To those that recognize and value our connection. Thank you.
Hi, thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Lamont, and I'm a project coordinator for the One World Youth Group. I want to thank you for having us at this meeting and for letting us share our video with you and the projects that we're currently working on. The video and the Project Vandal Graffiti portal are two ways that we promote anti-racism in our communities. So we're seeking to make a connection with you today so we can share our graffiti reporting tool data. And so you're aware of some of the efforts that we're making in your community. So if possible, we'd like to find a representative to communicate our findings with. And we also invite you to share this video further if you would like. And thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. That was my first time seeing that video. Very well done. Wonderful to see. We have an opportunity for some questions, directors of the delegation today. Did anybody have any questions on the presentation or comments? Yes, Director Gittins, go ahead, please.
Thank you, the chair. First of all, I really like your hashtag, that okay, we've got this. That's a really good one. And I was curious about your youth crew and if you do any work with the Foundry or if you connect with the Foundry. So that's one question. And my other question around the murals, because I think it's like over 10 years ago, we had a Reimagine Art Festival in downtown where we put murals up around the city. And there was a lot of data to suggest that the more murals we have, the less graffiti and tagging we see, because there's a bit of a stigma that you don't tag somebody else's really great street work and such. So I would love to see that come back to the city. I thought that was a really great initiative. And so those are my two questions. Are you working with the Foundry at all? And are you working at all with the Downtown Penticton Association around murals in the city? Thank you.
Hi there. Yes, we are working with the Foundry Penticton. So I connect with Melissa Edgerly, who's the youth support worker there, and we are always looking for ways to collaborate. We do an intergenerational cooking program that when we did host in person, we hosted it at the Foundry in their kitchen there. But that event has moved online until One Sky gives us the go-ahead to collaborate there again. We also extend the invite to the Foundry youth groups when we are doing events outdoors in the community as well. And thank you for bringing that up about the murals. We really believe that art installments in these communities will spark thought and create a more welcoming and inclusive community, which is what SOEX is all about, and which is what the One World Youth Crew is all about. So we're really looking to bring these murals to all of the communities in our region, including the RDOS. And thank you.
And if I
Thank
can
you. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Sorry, I'll just add on to a little bit of what Michael was saying there in terms of the mural. This summer, the youth crew are really looking to focus in and work on 2 murals, one in Summerland and the other in OK Falls. And next year, we would like to expand that further out into our region to other communities. So if you have ideas, we would love to hear from you and opportunities where we can partner with that.
Okay, thank you. Director McCordoff, you have a hand up?
Thank you very much. That was not my first time seeing that that video. I've seen it 3 or 4 times, and I continue to find it very powerful. And I think you've done an excellent job with that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And Director Santos, go ahead, please. Oh, you're on mute.
So sorry. Thank you, Chair. To the delegation, I was just wondering if you were aware that the City of Penticton has an Art, Culture, and Innovation Advisory Committee, and they do discuss things such as murals. So if there is an interest from SOICS to have a representative apply to that advisory committee to be a part of it, I know we'd be delighted to have you attend.
Okay, great, thank you, Dr. Santos.
Thank you. We would like to definitely connect. So maybe after this, we'll follow up.
That would be great.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands up. So just to clarify, Michael, you had mentioned you're looking for a representative or someone that would, I guess, be a liaison from the RDOS board on this particular initiative. Is that correct?
Yes, we're looking for the most appropriate person to contact with data found from the Project Vandal reporting tool.
Okay. So I'm just wondering if we might be able to have Ms. Malden connect with you on that to find out a bit more details, and then we could bring it forward later to the board of directors to find out who would be the appropriate fit and appoint somebody to be a liaison for you. Would that work for you? Okay.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments, Elmira or Katerina, Cherry, Michael?
Oh, I don't think so, but thank you once again for giving us this opportunity to talk with you. So thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for presenting to us today. That was a wonderful presentation, and I'm sure we'll see you back here in the future to give us updates as you move forward. And we will connect with you regarding a representative in the near future. Okay, great. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And directors, we will move on to section C of your agenda next. And that's development services, rural land use matters. We'll go to C1. Development Variance Permit Application 1135 Jonathan Drive in Area F, CAO.
This is for an overheight garage up in the West Bench area, Madam Chair, and we're recommending that it be denied just due to the aesthetics of it, of a large garage in West Bench, and that there is a significant encroachment into a front yard, which isn't in the character of the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Director Gettins.
Great, thank you, Chair. Can I move the alternative recommendation number 2 and take this to the APC, please?
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Director Monteith is seconding. Any questions or comments? So the motion is that this be referred out to the Area F APC committee, and this is a rural vote. So I'll call the question. All in favor? Hands can come down. Anybody opposed? Okay, that motion carries. We'll go to C2, temporary use permit application 9540 Shoot Lake Road in Area E, CAO.
So this is for a cabin up at the Shoot Lake Lodge, and they want to try it out on a pilot program because they're not just sure what the market would be for this type of accommodation up there. So we are recommending in favor of the TUP on this application, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking for someone to move this. Director Bush is moving it. Director Guttins is seconding it. Any questions or comments? Once again, this is a rural vote. I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Hands can come down. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. We'll go to C3, Building Bylaw Amendment, Citing Permits, CAO.
So we've had lots of discussions about containers lately, and so this is the part on the building bylaw, and we're recommending that we take the requirement for a citing permit out of the building bylaw. We're recommending first and second reading because it's sort of a corollary discussion to the zoning bylaws that we would need to put rules in for containers. So I would like them to progress at the same time, but we of course have a regulatory process for the zoning amendment that isn't a requirement for building bylaws. So we are recommending that we go ahead with the deletion of the requirement for citing permits in the building bylaw, Madam Chair, but that we just give it first and second reading.
Okay, thank you. Director's looking for someone to move this. Director Pendergraft, are you moving it? Yes, okay. Seconded by Director Knodel. Any questions or comments? Yes, Director Guttins.
Thank you, the Chair. If we remove the citing permit for the containers, and because they're not a permanent structure, do they still have to then follow all the setbacks and everything? Like you can't put one in the front yard in between your house and your street. I'm just thinking because they're not foundation or a permanent structure.
Yeah, so setbacks are zoning bylaw requirements. So there would be no application when somebody wants to just put a container on their yard. So it might be a little tougher to detect. But if they do want to put it in a setback, that would be then a variance.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? This is a rural vote. I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, hands can come down. And is anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll go to C4, Official Community Plan and Zoning Bylaw Amendment, Willow Beach in Area A, CAO.
So this is for the OCP amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment for a development at Willow Beach. We're recommending that both of those get first and second reading and go to public hearing, which would be delegated out to Director Pendergraft. But I do believe that Mr. Garish has some pictures for the board on this one, Madam Chair.
Okay, Mr. Garish, do you have a presentation for us?
I do have some slides, which I know I didn't have much luck in committee, but I'll see if I can get them up on during the public hearing today, if I can get them up on the screen.
Yeah, Danny does have them in the presentations folder, Chris. Want that?
Well, I'll see what luck I have.
Here we go. It's working.
That's working?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, just for the benefit of the board, I just wanted to highlight that there is existing zoning at Willow Beach. Willow Beach is designated as a growth area under the RGS. I believe the last time we did a density calculation, I think 240 units are capable of being accommodated under the current zoning. That's because of limitations in relation to infrastructure servicing, primarily sewer connections. The applicant is proposing, I guess what we would call a down zoning. They're contemplating a 70-unit subdivision. They also want to put the rear of the property to a conservation area. I know there's a lot of colors here on the slide for how we make this work, but for the most part, the end result would be the rear of the property and conservation area and the front end of the property in low density residential RS1 zone. They are asking for a site-specific amendment to allow for a more narrow width allowance for the proposed parcels that they want to create. And I mean, just a different context looking at it, here's an aerial photo. As the board may be aware, there's a long-standing mobile home park that I believe was established when the site was primarily used as a campground. I think this aerial photo is a little bit older. I don't think that there's many residents left within the mobile home park. It may be hard to see, but there is a road, dedicated road that runs through the site. I believe the applicant's proposing to close that and to realign it to reflect their subdivision proposal. And also to maintain access to the fee simple parcel that's in separate ownership over here to the east. And here's an older photo of Willow Beach from 2007. So that's basically the nature of the rezoning application. They are also, sorry, I should point out too that they are proposing a park dedication along the beachfront, as well as some dedicated road access required under the Transportation Act. And I believe that they're proposing that be dedicated to the regional district at subdivision stage. So that's the extent of my slides. Happy to answer any questions the board may have. I'll just stop sharing here.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chris. It looks like there's a few questions. Director Bush, go ahead, please.
Yes, I was just wondering, is this hooked up to the sewer system, or does it have its own sewer system?
Go ahead, Mr. Garish.
Yep. So this question came up at the Advisory Planning Commission meeting, and the applicant advised at that time that it is connected, I believe, to the Northwest Sewer, and that when the sewer was being constructed, they purchased up to 80 connections from the town of Osoyoos. I know the town has indicated in their response comments that they're going to undertake a capacity study review of the sewer to make sure that they have that available for the applicant. But that's all I know at this point.
Okay, thank you very much. I thought I saw another hand up, but it's come down. And I have been informed through Ms. Malden that we do need to split the vote on this. So the first vote would be on the first 4 sections, and then the following 3 after, with the first 4 being rural and the last 3 are corporate. Okay, so I'm going to go to Director Pendergraft on this.
Okay, thank you. I would make the recommended motion.
Okay, so you're moving the first motion. Is there a seconder for that?
Yes.
Director Bush, thank you very much. Any questions on the first motion? Okay, this is a rural vote. I'll call the question. All in favor? Hands can come down. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. I'll go back to Director Pendergraft on the second motion.
I'll make that motion as well, please.
Okay, seconded by Director Gettens. Any questions on the second motion? This one is a corporate vote. I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Hands can come down. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to C5, renewal of vacation rental temporary use permits, public consultation, CIO.
Yeah, so this is an amendment of our development procedures bylaw, Madam Chair, and really what its intention is to ensure that we get all the comments on applications coming before the board in time to send them out with the agenda, instead of sending them out electronically right into the board meeting where you don't have time to read them. So we're recommending that you give that first, second, and third reading, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Looking for a director to move this. Director Coyne Sr. is moving it. Director Roberts is seconding. Any questions or comments on this?
Oh, sorry. I gave you the wrong.
Oh.
I was on 6.
Oh, you're on 6. Well,
yes.
We can proceed with 6 then. Since,
okay.
Yes. So directors, just to point out, CAO Newell spoke on number 6. Okay, so we're still okay with the mover and seconder, correct? Okay, that is still a rural vote. This one's with a 2/3 majority. Okay, any further questions or comments? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Hands can come down. Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. So now we'll go to C5, which is the public consultation on TUPs. CAO?
Yeah, so this is also the development procedures bylaw, and it's the amendment on where we send renewals of TUPs for vacation rentals. And the intent is then to not send renewal applications out to the advisory planning commissions or to do the public information meetings. The initial applications will still go through those, but any renewals would not have to go through those steps.
Right, unless there was a lot of opposition or complaints about that renewal. Okay, thank you. Directors, looking for a mover on this one. Director Pendergraft is moving it. Director Knodel is seconding it. Any questions or comments? And this one is a rural vote. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Hands can come down. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. So now we're on to C7. C7 is OCP and zoning bylaw amendments, Okanagan Falls Commercial Zone Review, CAO.
So this is was the subject of one of your public hearings this morning, Madam Chair, and Mr. Garish gave you the description on it. So this is just to get third reading now after those public hearings this morning.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Director DeAndrea.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to support the administrative recommendation.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved, seconded by Director Bush. Any questions or comments? This is a rural vote. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Hands can come down. Anybody opposed? That motion carries. We'll go down to C8, zoning bylaw amendment for areas A, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I, CAO.
Yeah, so this was the other public hearing you had this morning, and this is to increase the size of floor areas for accessory dwelling units and suites.
Okay, and the motion is to be read a third time. Okay, looking for a mover on this. Director Knodel is moving it. Director Coyne Sr. is seconding. Any further questions or comments on this? And it is a roll vote. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Hands can come down. Anybody opposed? That motion carries. We'll go to C9, Amendment of Development Procedures Bylaw number 2500-2011 and Advisory Planning Commission APC Bylaw number 2339-2006, Municipal Affairs Statutes Amendment Act 2021, Bill 10, CAO.
We brought this into committee 2 weeks ago, Madam Chair, just advising committee that with the dissolving of the provincial state of emergency and the public health emergency, that some of that legislation that was passed during the pandemic would no longer be available. So the province has given local governments the opportunity to make changes in the procedure bylaws in order to either entrench or get rid of some of the rules that were required during that time. So this is the planning piece of it. There was also the legislative side of it, which will come at the next meeting. But this is the one where we need to amend our development procedures bylaw to make sure that we give the proper notification for public hearings, if we're going to do electronic hearings. And we made some changes during the pandemic to accommodate COVID that we're now going to be able to get rid of. So some of the housekeeping detail like that. So that's the changes to the development procedure bylaw. And then the other part is our advisory planning commission bylaw, which will still allow them to meet electronically if we go through the right process.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Looking for a mover for this. Director Roberts and seconded by Director Knodel. Any questions or concerns? This is a rural vote with a 2/3 majority. Call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Hands can come down. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. We'll go down to C10, petition to enter service area, electoral area H, fire prevention and suppression, CAO.
Yeah, this is to allow 260 Bonland Road into the rural Princeton Fire Service area, Madam Chair, and it's back for adoption.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Director Bob Coyne.
I would like to make the administrative recommendation, please.
Thank you, and I see it seconded by Director Spencer Coyne. Any questions or concerns? This one is a corporate vote. I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Hands can come down. Anybody opposed? That motion carries. That takes us down to D, Legislative Services, D1, Award of Electoral Area D Service and Boundary Configuration Study, CAO.
So we called for proposals to conduct the study for the Area D boundary review, and we only got one, but nevertheless it was a competitive process, and the committee has reviewed the proposal, found that it met all the requirements. So we have a recommendation that we award that to Nielsen Strategies and Left Side Partners, Madam Chair, for $90,000, and that well, let me frame this. And so the board may remember that we got $80,000 from the province to conduct the study. So the proposal came in a little bit higher than that, and then there will be some administrative costs as well, and we need to know where to charge them to. So the recommendation is to award the study at the $90,000 and to then charge any extraneous costs to the Area D rural projects budget.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I'll go to Director DeAndrea.
Yes, I'd like to move to support that, although there's obviously some concern about some of the extra costs. I've talked with Director Obrick on that, and we'd still like to proceed with the motion.
Okay, thank you. And it looks like it's seconded by Director Bush. Is that correct, Director Bush? No. Oh, you're not seconding. Okay, is someone else seconding this? Okay, I'll second it. Motion's on the floor. I'll go to Director Bush. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I'm just going to state that I'm going to vote against this because I strongly believe this is a waste of taxpayers' money.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else with a comment or question? Director DeAndrea, go ahead, please.
Yes, I can tell you that the community around Okanagan Falls in Area D has been looking at this, and there's some strong support for looking at whether or not there should be an assessment and a study done with respect to incorporation. This is the first stage that's necessary in order to even look at that. But I can tell you the constituents certainly support this process going through.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? This is a weighted corporate vote. I'll call the question then. All in favor? Thank you. Hands can come down. And anybody opposed? Director Bush is opposed. Anybody else opposed? Okay, not seeing anyone else. That motion carries. Okay, directors, that takes us down to CAO report. Go ahead.
Oh, nothing new from me, Madam Chair.
Okay, and then Chair's report, just a couple quick things. So CAO Newell and I had a couple meetings in June, late June. One of them was with the province. I know some of our board members were on there on passive infrastructure. And so our IT manager, Danny Francesco, actually presented about passive infrastructure. So that's the poles and fiber and infrastructure. And what we're going to do is have Danny just do a brief summary that we can share with the board so that it can further explain that discussion and recommendations that he made. So we'll get that out very quickly here. And then also CIO Newell and I heard from Chief Gabriel with Penticton Indian Band, and he does want to bring forward to us in the near future an agreement that we had many, many years ago for cost sharing with work on the Channel Parkway. So we are going to see that come back to the board in the near future, and we can look at how we can be involved in that process again with them. So that is everything from me. That takes us to director's motions. Did anybody have a notice of motion to present today? Director Roberts, go ahead, please.
Thank you. And for short notice, I've also emailed it to the legislative services. Whereas the RDOS is challenged in funding, ensuring, managing cost-effective, locally staffed fire flood mitigation in, on, and around and across Crown land jurisdictions. Therefore, a petition the federal and provincial governments to allow a limited amount of gas tax per annum to be coupled with Canada's summer jobs and/or student work grants to hire management and student workforce to oversee and work on local fire flood mitigation projects on and across Crown land jurisdictions. And this is, just so you know as well, this is part and parcel of something that's also been forwarded by Dan Albus, and it was with his help that I came up with this as a suggestion for a motion.
Okay, thank you very much, Director Roberts. So directors, that's a notice of motion. So we're going to see that come back in 2 weeks at the next board meeting, and we can discuss it at that time. And did anybody else have a notice of motion to present today? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands up there. I'll go on to board members' verbal updates. Did anybody have an update they'd like to provide from their area today? Okay, I'm not seeing anything. Oh, CIO Newell, go ahead, please.
Well, I was hoping that Director Johansson would mention that their new CAO started this week, Madam Chair.
Director Johansson, would you like to mention that?
Thanks for the reminder, CAO Newell. Yeah, Mr. Ed Chow started on July 5th. He's moved here from Wainwright, Alberta, and I've had a few discussions with him. He was involved in our regional aquatic facility planning committee on Wednesday, and yeah, I think he's going to be a great addition to the town of Oliver, and I think all the CAOs will enjoy working with them. So again, thanks CAO Newell for the reminder, and thank you very much.
I like that, renewal instead of renewal. Okay. And Director Sentis, I see your hands up. Go ahead, please. Oh, you're on mute.
Chris, I'm so sorry. Just a very quick update that Susan Brown, the CEO for the Interior Health Authority, has responded to our letters of concern as to the UPCC. She has identified an intent to improve communications, and I will be bringing more information to clarify what her intentions are at our meeting on July 22nd. But I just wanted to advise that she has acknowledged our letter and has responded. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Director Sentis. I'll go to Director Bush now. Go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to mention that I'm supporting the Cars Under the K coming to Kermis on, I think it's the August long weekend.
Sorry, that cut out a little bit, Director Bush. What are you supporting? Could you repeat, please?
I'm supporting Cars Under the K. It's a car group comes to Kermis.
Okay, great. And sorry, when is that?
I think it's August 1st or a long weekend anyways.
Okay, thank you. I see Director Roberts has a thumbs up, so sounds like the beginning of August. Okay, thank you. Anybody else who had an update to provide today? Okay, I am not seeing any other hands up, so I am therefore looking for a motion to adjourn today. Director Spencer Coyne, followed by Director Monteith. All in favor? Thank you. Anybody opposed? Nope, motion carries. Thank you, everyone. We will see you again in 2 weeks. Stay safe and take care. Bye now.